everybody. My name is Kim, School of Finance, Sungsil University, Seoul, Korea. This presentation is made to provide the opportunity for finance students to learn how to use financial calculator. From the first presentation, we discussed the basic instruction of BAII 2 Plus, manufactured by Texas Instruments. This is the second class, so we are discussing slide number 2. Here we're discussing basic concepts for time value of money. The first, we need to discuss the rate of return and the two types of averages. And then before we wrap up, we are going to discuss a basic concept to understand all the details of time value of money calculation. Here we're discussing timeline diagram and then the definition of compounding as well as discounting. Let's start with the rate of return. When we're discussing the finance matter, we're always talking about the rate of return. Rate of return is a measure for investment performance. From the formula, you can see rate of return is calculated by first, find the difference between wealth level at the end point of time and wealth level at the beginning of time. So that basically it is a change of wealth in 2 point of time or in a one period. That should be divided by wealth level at the beginning of time. So sometimes rate of return is frequently referred as holding period return. It gives you rate of return for one period. But you need to pay attention to this definition because here we did not say what is the length of a holding period. It can be a day, a week, month, or a quarter, or half a year, or 1 year, or even many years. So it did not specifically mention how long the holding period we are looking at, what we're handling with. Looking at the example of the rate of return calculation, you invest 100 and receive 120, so that profit is $20. So since you got the $20 net profit out of 100, your return will be 20% or 0.2. Okay, next one is averages. So when you're looking at the multiple periods, we already need to calculate the average of those rate of returns, average of many holding period returns. This example tells you the change of price of a stock. You're looking at the time horizon, t equals 0, 1, 2. So basically, this is a timeline. The timeline tells you the point of time where different cash flow occurs. Okay, stock price changed from 100 to 60 for the first period, and now is went back to 100 for the second period. So we have 3 point of time, but handling 2 period situation. So rate of return, in other words, holding period return, it can be calculated. T minus 100 divided by 100 will be 40%, but minus 40%. So that your investment value dropped by 40%. For the second period, your return will be 100 minus T divided by T, so it's approximately 6.67%. Since we have a 2 period of time, now you need to thinking about average of those 2 holding period return. There are 2 types of averages. The first one is arithmetic average. From the formula you can see, you add those 2 holding period returns or rate of returns for 2 periods and divide by number of period. In this example, we have negative 40% return and positive 6.67% return. So you're adding those 2 holding period return divided by 2 will give you about 13.34%. That's average for 2 periods. However, if you look at the stock price, it starts from 100, no matter what happened during t equals 1 or in the middle of that whole period, now the price went up back to 100. So by looking at those 2 stock price, t equals 0 and t equals 2, you should not have any return. Okay, you're maintaining the same stock price for 2 periods. However, arithmetic average return gives you positive 13.34%, which is interesting because from 100 to 100, it should not give any return at all. So we need to look at the geometric average return. formula is shown on this slide. 1 plus rate of return for the first period times 1 plus rate of return for the second period. And then take a root and minus 1. So using this exercise, it should be root 1 minus 0.4 because first period gives you minus 4% return, and 1 plus 0.6667 because second period you have positive 6.67% return. Then take a root minus 1. On this part, you have a little bit of a typo because this minus 1 should not under this root sign, should be outside it, as you can see from the first part of the formula. So anyway, it will give you a percent, which totally makes sense by looking at the timeline. You start with 100, t equals 0, 100. Now it becomes equal to, and same 100. So return must be 0%. Okay. So then when we are looking at the average return of the investment, you should use geometric average. Here are some easier way to calculate arithmetic return as well as a geometric return. In general, rate of return arithmetic is adding all the holding period return and divide by number of period. Okay. Meanwhile, geometric return is 1 plus holding period return. So you should multiply all those 1 plus holding period return and then take a root to the end, which means number of period. As you can see, we have a 2 period from the exercise, so we are using square root and minus 1. Here's a concise version of finding geometric return. Using the exercise we have, okay, so we have $100 worth level at the end and $100 worth level at the beginning, and take a root, n is 2, the square root, minus 1. Basically, this will give you percent. Okay, so it will be corresponding to the answer you got by using ordinary formula. But this concise version will give you same answer. Even though we did not discuss how to use calculator yet, let's go ahead and use the calculator to get this answer. Annual return for investing $48 for 3 years and withdraw 120. As you can see on those 5 key on the third row from the top, you can enter one by one. Since we have a 3, okay, and we had the 3, and interest rate, we don't have it, so we need to find it, so you skip it. Enter $48, but since it's an investment, you should enter minus sign. Okay, be careful with the sign because BAII plus calculate the direction of cash flow. If you invest, which is cash outflow, then you should not forget enter minus sign in front of the cash flow you are investing. So 48 minus. So as you can see from the screen, you have a diagram point of a triangle pointing to the left hand side. So it should be entered. And then you don't have a payment, so 0 payment. The future value is 120. Okay, enter. And you find interest rate. So about 35.72% return from this question. Okay, now before we wrap up this exercise of slide 2, let me go ahead and explain a little bit about the basic concepts of timeline. As you can see on this timeline, here we have 1 period, so n is 1, and the 2 period, n is 2. So n is always indicating number of period. And we have an interest for each period, so that interest is a periodic rate. Okay, so the n is a number of a period, and interest, which we call I/y, okay, is periodic rate. And then we have a cash flow. All the cash flow will be shown on each point of time. Okay, here, here, or there, and etc. But be careful with the signs. Okay, sign is very important. Okay, if it's cash inflow in the past, tip sign. So you receive money of this much. Or if it's outflow, use a minus sign. You pay this much of money. Okay, so be careful with the signs all the time. Next, Let me go ahead and explain what is compounding and discounting, and then we can wrap up this slide lecture. The compounding is a procedure we are finding future value from present value. So to find the future value from the given present value, you should have an interest rate, the periodic rate, and the number of period. You should get in the I/y to find future value. Okay, that's compounding. Meanwhile, discounting is finding present value from given future value. For this case, you should have interest and number of period also. So now in this case, we are finding future value from the future value finding present value. That we call discounting. So all the time value of money calculation mainly focus on finding present value and future value. In other words, we are doing compounding or discounting. From slide 1 and slide 2, we discuss basic concepts and the basic instructions. From the next slide, we are going to start the actual calculations of the time value of money. Okay, we'll see you next time.